You hear that? You hear that? That's special. There's a lot of lions, tigers, and bears, but there ain't but one razorback.
McFadden, say goodbye. Darren McFadden, 80 yards, touchdown.
Fly ball, deep left field. Out of here. Madden for maybe the win. Oh, the follow is good. Arkansas in overtime. I think he just made SportsCenter again. Arkansas is in hog heaven. They won the first ever national championship.
All I want you to do tonight is play your best. Don't worry about making a mistake. You can make a mistake, that's fine, as long as you're going 100 miles an hour.
Dan Enos is out. Kenny Guiton is in. Welcome into episode 49 of the Woo Pig Weekly podcast from the Home Field Studios, your weekly source for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Episode 49 is brought to you by Home Field. They're the home of premium vintage collegiate apparel. They're releasing new stuff constantly. Fantastic bomber jackets, pullovers, hoodies, t-shirts, you name it, they got it. So go check them out. Use Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order, thanks to Variety Sports Networks. And we'll jump in here with, week 8. Terrible game, just stating the facts. Arkansas falls to Mississippi State 7-3 in a game where 99% of the time, if you hold your opponents to 7 points, you're going to win this game. But that wasn't the case for Arkansas here as the offensive struggles continued in this game. They honestly couldn't get anything going. KJ's lowest output of the season in this game. No touchdowns, had an interception. It was just all around not a great game in our return to home after that tough road stretch. So basic thoughts here before we dive in here, Seth.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't really know how else to describe this game. The defense played lights out again. I mean, and I kind of expected that against a struggling Mississippi State, especially with Will Rogers not playing. So they did a pretty bang up job, honestly, holding Mississippi State to 7 points, flying to the ball all over the place. You can commend the defense a lot from this game. However, you got to take the good with the bad, and the offense really. This was actually about the worst offensive performance I've seen all year. We've had some rough ones that we've talked about in some previous episodes, but this one kind of takes the cake for me. I don't know if we came into the game expecting an easy win just because it was Mississippi State and they've struggled. And we thought we were kind of maybe finding something against Alabama late in that Alabama game the week prior or what, or if we had an Alabama hangover or something. I don't know. But nothing worked. Like literally nothing worked. We can dive into some of the details a little bit later on, but I mean, we had a hard time running the ball, definitely couldn't throw the ball. Receivers weren't really getting open. When they were getting open, KJ missed them. KJ was getting hit a lot again. I mean, all of the issues you can think of, we were struggling with, honestly. I mean, even on special teams, I mean, we forced, I think, 8 punts and had 0 punt return yards, all fair catches. And I don't think all of those were just great punts, if that makes sense. So I just think everything seemed sluggish outside of the defensive things, but really weird game.
Yeah. And I did notice on a lot of their punts, it seemed like they were purposely kicking away from Satania. And to be fair, that's smarter than him. He could bust one any minute. And with it being such a close game, I don't blame them for punting away from him. But like you said, not giving us an opportunity to return kind of hurts us. And, we've been able to score every way but offensively. And so I think that was a smart coaching move by them. But yeah, like you said, it was just weird to put up 3 points in an entire game. Is with the talent that we have is ridiculous. Like you said, nothing worked. KJ was getting hit constantly. And it's just one of those games that this one, honestly, out of all the ones so far this season, you got to flush this tape. It was just
bad.
Yeah, bad. And, we mentioned it with our intro here. So, with that poor performance, that had effects that I think a lot of people were hoping would happen more than just now, a few weeks ago. But Dan Enos was relieved of his duties on Sunday. We'll get more into that later. But, I mean, you can just see here with these stats why, we know his offense hadn't been doing anything all year long. KJ Jefferson in this game, 19 of 31 for 97 yards, 1 interception. Not great. 16 carries for 38 yards. So late in the game, he was trying to push. He put the team on his back and trying to get some rushing yards, but didn't have really any help. You look at our rushing game, A.J. Green had 4 carries for 13 yards. Dominion, 14 carries for 47 yards. Dominic Johnson, 3 carries for 5 yards. So nothing going on the ground. And our leading receiver had 35 yards. So when you look at numbers like that, it makes sense that we only scored 3 points in a game, this situation. But to your point earlier, Cam Little is, we were talking about this before the show. Cam Little has got the leg on him. He's hit deep field goals before. Arkansas had an opportunity in the first half to kick. It was going to be a 51-yard field goal. Took the delay of game. Not sure why we didn't use the timeout. Then moved it back to a 56-yarder, and we punted instead. Why not let him kick that? You're going to halftime down 7-6 with the opportunity in the second half to only have to get in field goal range instead of having to score a touchdown to win the game.
Yeah, obviously that was a question mark for I think everybody, and then it was asked in the post-game presser. I don't know why Pittman admitted to this. We've talked a little bit of it outside of the show, but I mean, he basically said he just didn't know what to do there. And with him not knowing what to do in that situation, didn't know if he needed to burn the timeout, go ahead and rush the punt team out or rush the field goal team out. I think there was kind of some confusion from what play to call. And I don't really understand why there wasn't enough confidence in Cam to either A, get him out there immediately. Maybe they were trying to decide on going for it. I really don't know. But even after the fact that you don't burn the timeout, you take the delay of game because you had you were late getting your field goal unit out onto the field. With the way Cam's been kicking, I don't see a big difference between 51 and 56 yards. I mean, he hit a 54-yarder, I believe, not too long ago, and it would have been good from 60, 65 yards. I mean, he's been banging them through. I think, what has he hit? 4 50-yard field goals now in his career, and he's really, really been solid in that department. And he's really shown that he's kind of added that range to his arsenal. So I'm not really nothing makes sense in that whole situation. Why you A, don't use a timeout. B, if you're going to kick the field goal, what's the difference in a 51 and a 56 when Cam Little's kicking? And then C, why do you admit, as a coaching perspective, why do you admit to not knowing what to do in that situation when you're asked about it? I mean, if you were just going to go out there, take the delay game and then punt it just so you had a little bit more room to punt, say that. Fine, whatever. I will give Sam Pittman a little bit of credit for being honest. I mean, I think that's something that you can commend him for. I think he's been honest pretty much about every single thing he's ever answered in his career here, whether it's how the team's playing, how certain players are playing, how coaches are coaching, where improvement is needed, including himself. So I will give him, some commendation there. But it was kind of strange to hear that answer when it was asked in the presser. And I definitely think that's something that a lot of fans had not an easy feeling about. You know what I'm saying? When your head guy, you're in the middle of a game scenario that happens fairly frequently in football games where you've got to kind of make a call between A, kicking a long field goal, punting it, or going for it kind of in that portion of the field. And we're sitting there fumbling around, not knowing what to do. So that's a kind of a point of an uneasy feeling. So hoping we can get a little bit better decision making in that department. But I do give Sam some credit just for being honest with the fans, honest with the state. I know that's tough.
Yeah. And I mean, mentioning Cam, we even talked about it a couple weeks ago where it came out that he had a 68-yarder in practice in a 2-minute drill. So, if he can hit those deep field goals, I feel like the odds for him to make that is pretty high. But like you said, I will say that's what a lot of people at least, have commended Pittman on. He doesn't beat around the bush. He says it like it is. He doesn't try to give you some made up answer that you want to hear. He just comes out and tells you how it is, which is fantastic sometimes. And sometimes in this situation, it makes you question it. But I mean, I think that kind of shows you how real he is and just really, he doesn't care. And he's going to tell you how it is. But like we said, in this game, once again, story of the season, defense kept us in this game. They have played lights out all year, and you kind of got a feel for this defense with how fantastic they've been playing and getting no help from the offense. That's got to suck when you're getting turnovers. Like at the beginning of the game, Arkansas got a fantastic turnover on Mississippi State's first drive of the game inside Arkansas territory at the 25, and then came out of it with 3 points. When you're a defense and you get something like that happen, you got to be like, okay, now our offense will go down and get us some points. And yeah, they got you some points, but 7 would have been much better on the board than 3. But when you do look at our defense, Chris Ball Jr., we talked about him preseason. He's been, flying around the field all year, 12 total tackles in this game, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Jaden Johnson, 5 total tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Hudson Clark, 5 total tackles, 1 solo. And Al Walcott, 5 total tackles, 1 solo, and he had that interception at the beginning of the game. And talking defensively, you got to think a questionable call, in my opinion, late in the game when Arkansas recovered a fumble that would have been a touchdown that was called back due to a dead ball foul that was called a false start penalty. I know they asked Sam about that in the presser too, and he mentioned that they could hear the whistles on the field. I think for us as fans, myself that was at the game when that whole sequence was happening, I think it probably got too loud for any of us to hear that whistle. I know I didn't for sure. I think everybody's going crazy because they thought we just scored to win the game. And for Arkansas's luck, that gets called back and didn't, negated by a penalty. So,
yeah, it was unfortunate that it was a penalty that we weren't able to decline as well, with it being kind of a dead ball type play where I think a wide receiver was coming out in motion and actually not in motion. He was just actually coming out to the wide side of the field and wasn't able to get set before the snap happened. So ended up being a dead ball foul like that and they blow the play dead, which it's a bad snap that we scooped and scored. And that would have been our only touchdown of the game, which to your point, if the way the defense was playing, if you can what if yourself, that very likely would have been a game winner with the way the defense was playing. Obviously Mississippi State didn't score anymore. So would have been nice. But at the end of the day, you can't depend on your defense to be the only part of your team that can score a touchdown. That's ridiculous to even say that. It's just crazy. So yeah, it hurts to not get that one go your way, but you can't depend on that to be the reason you win or lose a game. So I really wasn't upset that didn't go our way. You can't count on those types of things. You got to win games by your own play. If that makes sense. But it was a little bit of a crazy situation that, typical Arkansas luck, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Last thing we'll cover here, not too much in the stats that we can dive into is, we said this is just a terrible game. 5 penalties, 60 yards. We mentioned a couple weeks ago, 5 penalties, not terrible. You'd like to see no penalties, but 60 yards, that's quite a bit more than we've had in a few of the past games. It's just not very disciplined, or like we said, that offense isn't working, causing guys to either not be lined up right or those false starts, early snaps, things like that nature. So hopefully those get cleaned up, and we'll kind of go into our next portion here is, we don't have a preview this week as this is Arkansas's bye week. So we'll kind of dive into, we mentioned earlier, Sunday, the news came out. Coach Pittman relieved Dan Enos of the offensive coordinator job on Sunday, appointed wide receivers coach Kenny Guiton as the interim OC for the rest of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how this, works out for Arkansas. I think we both caught the presser that came out on Monday for Pittman talking about, letting Dan go, promoting Kenny Guiton. And I'll be the first to admit that when we hired Dan Enos on, I bought in. I really thought he was going to come in and be good for KJ and have a decent offense. And that just for some reason didn't happen. Coach Pittman mentioned that, something about this offense and scheming that he had just never really clicked with this offense, that the guys didn't really pick it up or really feel inspired to play with it in this type of offense. And when that happens, guys don't really feel this type of offense click in it, want to play in it. You see Arkansas is the definition of what happens in that situation.
Yeah, I think one item of note, that he talked about in that presser was just and I don't think this is necessarily a knock on Dan Enos, but I think it's something that Pittman maybe saw as the season went on, is that Enos, I think, struggled to kind of get the guys motivated. Obviously, the offense wasn't working kind of from day one. I think, I talked about it preseason around how that was one area we were a little bit concerned about, on how KJ and some of the receivers and the line obviously were going to be able to, forget Bryle's offense and learn Dan's offense, how quick that was going to happen. I mean, we had high hopes, obviously, and I'm kind of with you. I think I bought in and really thought that there was going to be some pretty high potential for this offense. Just looking back, the 2015, 2014, 16 range. I mean, Enos had some decent offense. Granted, it was different, and the players were different. And he had, let's be real, a dang good offensive line to kind of run behind. And I think that probably had a lot of effect. I think Enos kind of brought his offense back, and without having the offensive line that he had back then, it just didn't click, And one thing I think Pittman did kind of talk about is he really never adapted his offense to fit what he had to work with. There were some things that worked here and there, little spurts. And I think that's what Pittman also talked about, is that's what him and Kenny and the guys are going to try to kind of go back through the previous, 7 games, try to figure out what worked, what didn't, flush the stuff that didn't work out of the system, shrink the playbook, kind of try to make it a little bit simpler for KJ and the guys, and see if they can just focus on some plays that have had success, and not call all the other fluff. I don't know if that's going to be good for us or bad for us. I feel like we already run the same 5 plays over and over, so now we're going to be down to 3, which that's a hypothetical, really, but we'll kind of see how that goes. But at the end of the day, I think, kind of what it boiled down to for Sam is that Dan just couldn't get the guys motivated to play. Even with the scheme struggles, if you're having scheme struggles, you're really going to have struggles if the guys, don't really have that fire in their gut to go out there and block hard and run hard and kind of stay in games when they're getting banged around. I know KJ, you could see some frustration on his face in this Mississippi State game. I mean, there's obviously some memes going around where he was rolling his eyes after a couple of plays, and I get it, man. He's had a rough year. It's been tough sledding. So I think there's a combination of things that really, Sam didn't have a choice but to let Dan go. I was happy to hear Sam, talk him up and say he is such a great guy. It just, the offense wasn't clicking, so we had to make a change. So I get it.
Yeah, and as much as it sucks, like you said, I don't think this is the year KJ thought he would have. And looking at it from this perspective, yeah, maybe we should have made this move a few weeks ago. But I feel like this is also decent timing with us going into a bye week and Guiton having 2 weeks to prepare. I know Coach Pittman in the presser mentioned going back to some stuff from the Browse playbook that, Guiton was here the past 3 seasons with, Browse as well. So it'll be interesting to see, do they pull stuff back from last year that they ran that maybe KJ prefers a little bit. I'm interested to see what Guyton's going to do with this offense. He's a little bit younger guy. His wide receiver room loves him. I know guys are probably excited to, maybe he'll, like you said, get these guys excited to go out and, these final 4 games here that we've got. I know Pittman mentioned in his presser that on Saturday, if you look at the play calling, you had KJ dropping back 29 times. That's not KJ's game at all. He's not a pocket passer. We've established that. He does better on, he can throw out of the pocket, but he likes that RPO kind of improvising, getting outside the pocket type play. And maybe that's what we go back to. I think that fits him, and I think that's maybe where we have more success. And Coach Guiton, we'll get into a little bit of history in a minute, but he is a former quarterback, so he can kind of understand where KJ is coming from. I'll be interested to see what they do playbook wise. Like you said, we're probably going to shrink this playbook, really focus on what's working. I'll be interested to see, we mentioned it a few episodes ago, do we maybe switch up our blocking schemes back to a zone style from what we were running with Enos? It'll be interesting to see what direction Coach Pittman and Kenny go, as we go through the rest of the season. Hypothetically, Arkansas could still get bowl eligible if we went out that's a tough task for this team. But if we get Arkansas clicking, this offense clicking, I mean, I feel super comfortable with our defense. The only game that worries me down the stretch is Missouri out of these Final Four. I mean, let's just be real. Missouri's good this year. That's just a fact. I mean, as much as we don't like it, they're contending in the East right now.
Yeah, it definitely makes that Drinkwitz hire look a little bit better than it did, when it first happened. I think he struggled his first couple of years, but now that he's got his guys there, you gotta commend them. They've had a great year. He's got a good quarterback, good defense, got some guys flying all over the field. So yeah, I'm nervous about that game for sure. Honestly though, we had talked about it in a couple episodes ago. I think the previous episode too, that this Mississippi State game was kind of a must win. And when we talked about it too, if you lose this game, that some changes have to be made, and we do see that. So at least some things are kind of coming to fruition. How us as fans kind of feel like they needed to have happened if we lose this game, like I said. So I'm curious to kind of see, how much of Dan's offense even stays around with Kenny, or how much it really does kind of revert back to, hey, we're going to get back to kind of that RPO, real heavy read option kind of type offense. And to your point, I think certain things about getting KJ outside the pocket really, really do help him, especially even when receivers aren't getting open. I mean, you get outside the tackles, it's a lot easier to throw the ball away without getting a grounding call. If you're outside the tackles, and I think that's something that KJ hasn't really been able to do. You saw him do it a lot more the previous 2 years on plays that were just kind of not there. He did throw the ball away quite a bit more back in the past. I think he kind of lost that confidence in being able to chunk the ball because he was coming out of the pocket so much. Didn't want to get that penalty there, and I get it. So he took more sacks than he probably needed to, just trying to make something happen when really the ball just should have went into the stands. But hopefully we can just get him more comfortable. I think that's really the main goal from Sam at the end of the day, is to get KJ more comfortable with what's going on, take a few things off his plate. That was kind of verbatim what Sam said in the press conference. Hopefully make it to where it's easier for him to make quicker decisions. Maybe the decisions are not so hard. He only has 2 reads, and if they're not there, chunk that ball out in the sands and don't take a sack, and you go on to the next play. I hope there's success there. I'm still a little bit wary that we're not going to win a conference game this year, just with the way things have looked so far. But I mean, Pittman, he was adamant that, look, this is not a fire and consider the season lost and let's go out and try to hire a new offensive coordinator or whatever the case may be and just consider the season a waste. There's still winnable games out there. They're going to practice and prepare and try to win those games. And I appreciate that, because it would be easy to throw in the towel at this point from a coaching's perspective and just, try to look to next year and probably start playing some backups and things of that nature, just seeing what you're going to have after this year's over. And it could kind of get ugly in a hurry, but we're in a lot of these games. I mean, that's another thing you got to consider. The defense has kept us in pretty much every single game this year. Texas A&M game kind of excluded, and even that one was close enough to be competitive. So we've got a good shot to be in these last 4 games of the year. It's just going to be, can we find a few things that click to get KJ comfortable to give ourselves a little bit better chance to win them and not rely on the defense having to score or something of that nature.
Yeah, that's true. A few points, Owen Halen, that you mentioned too. Like you said, KJ getting in that RPO. Part of it too, if the pass is not there, we know KJ is a fantastic runner. Look at the point of RPO. If your quarterback gets out of that tackle box and out of the pocket, he's going to draw those linebackers in, and those linebackers are going to drop off their assignments. And somebody's going to be open. That's what KJ's done really well the past 2-3 seasons is he gets out of the pocket. Guys start trying to go to tackle him, and he finds the open man. I mean, how many plays have we seen where KJ starts getting out of the pocket, draws defenders in, and then we hit a big gain down the field? I mean, you look at that Bama game where he escaped all those tackles, you had a wide open man for a 25-yard gain. So I think that's what his game does. And I think Dan was maybe trying to make him too one-dimensional in a sense of forcing him to be in the pocket. And then if it wasn't worked, he just got sacked, and not as many quarterback draw or quarterback read type plays for him that he kind of honestly thrived in under Briles. And then when you look at it too, like you said, this isn't throwing in the towel for the season. Pittman mentioned in his press conference, we've been in every game of the season. It's not like we were getting blown out 40-12 or 56-7, things of that nature. It's not like we've been in these games fighting for the wins every game in, game out. So I think that shows that there's something there, and if we can just get this offense rolling, we can win 2-3 of these last 4 games here. Like we said, Missouri's going to be a tough one, but it is at home. So, if Coach Guiton can get these guys fired up, that could be a good game for Arkansas.
Real quick, too, I'll throw another little note out there. I just kind of want to add. It's something you got to really commend the Travis Williams, Marcus Woodson, our defensive coordinator team. I mean, the fact that our defense hasn't given up in any of these games, they are playing hard for 60 minutes in every single game this year. He hasn't lost that locker room. Those guys aren't quitting on him. I mean, that's something to really commend, considering how much struggles we're having on the offensive side of the ball. It'd be real easy for the defense to kind of mail it in. I would understand it even, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's one thing you do kind of have to commend and copy that type of coaching attitude and mentality over kind of to the offensive side of the ball. And I think, we talked about it already, but I do think that's kind of one of the things that Sam is needing out of his offensive coordinator position, is a little bit more of that motivational style.
Yeah. And I will take a note out of something that Pittman did say in this press conference, and some people were kind of looking at it as a bad thing, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, and it's showing he's focused on the season. But he did mention, ever since the news came out that we did let Dan go, that he's been getting calls about that offensive coordinator job. So it's not like Arkansas is a place that nobody wants to go. People are wanting to come coach under Coach Pittman. And I think that shows, what type of person he is, what type of head coach he is, that guys are wanting to come in. And, his clip that he said in that press conference was he has been having people call him, but he doesn't have time right now. And I respect that for him wanting to focus on the here and now, getting the rest of the season, seeing what we can do, and then focus on that search for the new offensive coordinator once the season's over. And I think it's fair because, you got Coach Guiton, and he comes out and maybe finds a spark for this offense, and we look 2 times better the rest of the season. I feel like it's fair to give him an interview for this job. I think you got to see what he's going to do the rest of the season. What can he come up with to help these guys maybe manufacture some offense?
Yeah, that's very true. I think Pittman expressly stated that Kenny will be considered for the job long term, kind of depending on how these next 4 games go, how the preparation looks, and all that stuff. So it's kind of, for a guy like that, you really got to be rooting for him to come out there and have really good success. You want those guys to be able to make career moves when they can, when these opportunities arise. This is an opportunity, so wish him nothing but the best, man. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see him come in and kind of flip the script on the season, make these last few games something I maybe build upon for 2024. I know the whole conference schedule is going to be so different then. Like 2024 kind of feels like a fresh slate in a way. So hopefully we can have a little bit of momentum going into it. And I think, we haven't really talked about it a lot. I know Pittman said they've already called all the recruits, that Dan was going after and things of that nature, and had a lot of good conversations. We'll see how it goes as far as keeping everybody that's committed and things of that nature. But you have a bad season, and you can't help but think that it has a potential to impact your recruiting trail. So getting some wins here at the end of the year and trying to kind of get the momentum back going in our direction, I think is kind of instrumental in not losing some guys that you might be kind of on the fence with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And to me, I like to make the point of, as terrible as the season's been so far, we haven't had a single recruit decommit yet. And I think that shows that they understand that, maybe this isn't 100% on Coach Pittman or how Arkansas's future is going to be. It's just things weren't working like we know, weren't clicking and everything. So I think they believe in Coach Pittman. Like he said, he knows players like to come here because they like to play for him. And maybe that's something Coach Guiton can get these offensive guys want to play for him. That's a big point. We just talked about it with Coach Williams, Coach Woodson on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys want to play for them. They're playing their hearts out for those guys. And you see what happens when they do. Our defense has been fantastic this year. And so talking about Coach Guiton, just a quick overview of his kind of past and his stops. He's been at Arkansas for 3 seasons. He is a former quarterback that played at Ohio State. He has had stops at Colorado State in 2020 as the wide receivers coach, 2019 as the wide receivers coach at Louisiana Tech, wide receiver coach at Houston from 17 to 18, a quality control coach at Texas in 2017, and a graduate assistant at Houston in 2015 to 16. So he's been around different teams. That stint in Houston, he was with Bryles then too, so there's some familiarity there. So, like we said, let's wish him the best. Maybe he can find something. It'd be fantastic to kind of keep an inside guy if we could promote him up. I know a lot of people are already kind of making lists of top guys to go after, but I feel like it's not necessarily fair to not consider Guiton when he hadn't really showed what he can do yet. And that's what I'm interested to see the rest of the season. That's what I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah, I completely agree on that one.
And so as we kind of wrap up week 8 here, results from around the SEC: Alabama beats Tennessee 34-20. Missouri beats South Carolina 34-12. Ole Miss beats Auburn 28-21. And LSU beats Army 62-0. And so with that, we'll take a quick ad break and we'll be right back to talk Arkansas basketball, soccer, and all things other Arkansas sports going on.
You know what I like? I like to be comfortable. I also love representing my favorite sports teams. And in the Clutch, I am able to have the best of both worlds. In the Clutch Apparel is your one-stop shop for all things sports. They have officially licensed gear from all your favorite teams and players from the NHL, MLB, NFL, and more. They have sports classic tees from yesteryear and beyond. Check out their full website in the link down below. When you enter the promo code Variety Sports, you get 10% off everything site-wide. Feel comfortable with your sports apparel and go over to their website now at intheclutch.com. And don't forget to use our code Variety Sports to get 10% off.
All right, we are back as basketball has returned to the Palace, and Arkansas had their first exhibition game against UT Tyler, where they won this game 92-39, covered the 41.5-point spread. Couldn't ask for more than that in this game. You can't take a whole lot from this game, as it was just an exhibition game against a lower tier opponent. But looking at it, you had Cleve Battle, the leading scorer, with 14 points, Davenport with 13, and Tremont Mark with 10. You had Devo lead the team in rebounds with 7, Bayfall with 6, Chandler Lawson with 6. And then the team shot 45.6% from the field, 32% from the three-point range, and 82.6% from the free throw line. Great numbers all around there. Guys knocking off some rust, kind of getting out there. You saw Brazil make his return to the court. Not a ton on the stat sheet, but, he looked good playing out there. He had one big dunk that kind of showed he still has his explosiveness. So I think he's just got to get a little bit of rhythm, knock some rust off. He hadn't played basketball in nearly 12 months. Anything specific from this exhibition game you take, Seth?
No, nothing crazy. I think Battle coming in being a leading scorer just shows what he's capable to do. I think he came in off the bench, looked pretty solid. Everybody shot fairly well. That's kind of expected with this kind of competition. So to your point, not a lot to, overanalyze or underanalyze, whatever you want to say. Definitely a tune-up type game. But overall, it's kind of fun to see a glimpse of what this team's potential is. I mean, putting 92 points up in your first, kind of real competition of the year. That's never a bad thing. It shows you can score points, and obviously the defense came out, played pretty well. Obviously take everything with a grain of salt considering who you're playing, but I think it's a lot to be excited about. I think everybody knows that this is probably the deepest team that Musselman's had. Even he said that. From top to bottom, if you just look at talent perspective, you may not have that kind of one standout guy that maybe he's had here and there over the past couple of years with, Nick Smith or Anthony Black, whatever, or you go back to Moses Moody, guys like that. But I think from top to bottom, this team's probably the deepest we've had, which, in my opinion, kind of bodes well when it comes to tournament time. When you may have one person go cold, you've got 7 other guys that can heat up at any given time. So I think from a overall season standpoint, we've got a really good chance at having an even better season than the last couple have been, which have honestly been phenomenal for Arkansas basketball. So I'm excited. I'm hopefully not getting myself too hyped up, but man, I'm pretty pumped for this year.
Yeah, Arkansas's got a good test coming up this Saturday. Is their competition level goes from 0 to 100 real quick as the Purdue Boilermakers are coming to town in a charity expedition. They're preseason AP number 3 in the country. They've got Zach Edey, the big man. 7'2", I believe, is his height. So, that'd be a good test for Arkansas to come out and see how we match up not only with an experienced Purdue team, but kind of what we do against guys that are kind of outsize us. We've got some length and size. You got Brazil, you've got Chandler Lawson that he's listed at 6'10", but his wingspan is gigantic. So I'll be interested to see how Musselman goes about kind of slowing Edey down. You're not stopping him. I think the trick is going to be finding the best solution to slow him down. That game will be on Saturday at 3 p.m. It actually will be streamed on SEC Plus. So if you don't get the chance to go, you can still catch it on TV. Another item of note, Tremont Mark was named to the Jerry West Award preseason watch list, which goes to the best shooting guard in the country. So high expectations, Tremont Mark, coming back. He tested the NBA waters, decided to come back to Arkansas, has experience with that run Houston made last year. So I think he'll just bring good things to this team, and it'll be hopefully, like you said, a really good season and a potentially season that could be better than the past few we've had. So we'll jump over to Arkansas soccer, where some exciting things for Arkansas soccer, and Seth will let you know what's going on.
Yeah, so Arkansas took on LSU on October 19th. And unfortunately, this match kind of came down to the wire where we were able to squeak a tie in to finish the match with a draw 1-1 with LSU. So our lone goal came in the final 7 minutes off of a perfectly executed free kick where Avery Wren took the free kick pass to Tank, who sent across to Bay Franklin for the game-tying goal. So kind of a clutch way to finish that game. Unfortunately, couldn't find a way to win it, but it's never a bad thing to have a draw. It's definitely better than a loss. And then they turned around on October 22nd, took on Ole Miss, and got back in the win column with a 5-1 victory. Sophia Aragon got things started 9 minutes into the game, so kind of starting fast again, like we've seen off and on throughout the year. She scored this goal off of a crosser from Morgan White. The next 2 goals came within 2 minutes of each other, where freshman Bella Fields scored the game's second goal, followed by Ava Tankersley 2 minutes later. Arkansas's 4th goal was scored by Anna Potagil in the 56th minute of the match off of a corner kick from B. Franklin. And then the final goal came from freshman Kennedy Ball off of a pass from Sabrina Jones. So a lot of names kind of getting in on the action in this one. Definitely a good thing to get a win against Ole Miss. Got our final matchup against Mississippi State, so taking on both Mississippi schools kind of back-to-back. So this secured the 4th straight regular season conference championship in front of 3,035 fans, which was the 3rd largest in program history. So this has been a huge season for the Razorbacks, setting all kinds of records. I know there's been a lot of fan turnout, especially in comparison to years past. So it's really good to see kind of the momentum that this team has carried throughout the year. Obviously, we've had a stellar SEC play stretch where I believe we've only lost 1 SEC match. So that's kind of a really good thing to hang your hat on. And like I said, the final match will be against Mississippi State on October 26th at home. So guys, get out there for this one. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, just to add to that, I was able to make it out to that game on Sunday. Fantastic, electric atmosphere. They did a promotion, Pups at the Pitch, Arkansas, getting the fans involved, even the 4-legged ones. It was a fantastic environment, electric. Like Seth said, we got things got things started early, scoring fast and often, with that 5-1 score. It was just, you can tell there's a lot of excitement around this Arkansas program. And so as they round out the regular season here against Mississippi State at home, your last chance to catch a home conference game, get out there. It is a fun atmosphere. You won't regret it. October 26th, 6:30, be there. It'll be a fun atmosphere to be at. We'll jump over to Arkansas volleyball, where Arkansas took on number 12 Tennessee, won that 3-1, went on the road, and unfortunately failed to Kentucky to lose their first conference match and their third, I guess, match of the season other than Wisconsin, where they lost 3-2. So they were in this this meet. And so unfortunately fell in this one. They get a chance to rebound as their next match is against South Carolina at home on October 27th back in Barnhill. So still have a lot of things ahead of them. This isn't going to be killer. Ranked loss isn't going to be terrible. Still got a lot of finish out this season and a lot of season left with postseason play as well. And so, like we mentioned, this is a bye week for Arkansas. No football preview this week. We'll hit that next week as Arkansas is going on the road to Gainesville to take on the Gators in the Swamp. We'll kind of have some more insight on what is going on with Coach Guiton in this offense. We'll see how practices have been, see if there's a difference. Hopefully and surely there will be upcoming events. We mentioned a few of these. Arkansas soccer is taking on Mississippi State Thursday, October 26th at 6:30, final home match of the regular season, and then it's SEC tournament time. Arkansas volleyball taking on South Carolina on the 27th at 6 p.m. Then you have Arkansas men's and women's cross country and the SEC championships going on the 27th. Arkansas swimming and diving will be back in action at Stanford on the 27th at 2 p.m. And we just mentioned that Arkansas men's basketball versus Purdue, that charity exhibition game, the 28th at 3 p.m. Big things coming there. Arkansas volleyball goes on the road to Florida on the 29th at 12 p.m. And then, like I just mentioned, SEC soccer tournament begins October 31st. Hopefully that's another run for Arkansas. I know they've had bad luck in the championship game of the tournament, making it 7 different times and losing to 7 different opponents. Can't really find a way to get that tournament championship. Maybe this year's the year they can capitalize on it and be both tournament and regular season champs. And kind of as we wrap up tonight, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go check out our YouTube channel. We're constantly coming out with more things. We're going to have some exciting things coming up in the next few weeks. But, thank you for listening to today's episode of Woo Pig Weekly. And as always, we'll catch you right back here next week.